Manchuria, the Soviet approach called for these troops to join in the offensive action, developing what Soviet strategists referred to simply as success. This was a bold, aggressive approach to warfare, but it required speed and surprise to prove effective in practice. The Soviet ability to achieve both these elements contributed vitally to the outcome of the Manchurian campaign. It also gives the whole offensive much of its relevance for military thinkers today. But in early August 1945, the Soviet commanders could not be completely certain of success in Manchuria. They knew that a powerful enemy awaited. The Kwantung Army was long established in Manchuria, and its commander, General Yamada Otozo, could call on considerable resources in the event of a Soviet invasion. In eastern Manchuria, there was General Kitasaichi's 1st Area Army, comprising some 222,000 men. Covering the center and south, the 181,000 men of the 3rd Area Army, under the command of General Ushikoru Jun. In the north was stationed a smaller 4th Separate Army based at Sitsiha. In all, another 95,000 men available to General Yamada and his Kwantung Army Command. The Japanese 34th Army of Northern Korea could also contribute 2 divisions, and troops stationed in regions such as southern Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands further strengthened Japanese resources, along with the army of the Manchukuo puppet state itself. In total, the Japanese could call on over 1 million men in the event of a Soviet attack. But sheer numbers alone are not always enough when it comes to battle, and the Japanese commanders knew that the Kwantung Army was far from combat ready. Many of its best troops had long since been creamed off to join the war effort in the Pacific. Many divisions lacked their nominal full complement of men, and shortages of hardware further weakened Kwantung Army strength. When battle was eventually joined, the Soviet provision of tanks, armament and air support far exceeded that of their enemy. The statistics for armor are especially revealing. The Kwantung Army could call on 1,155 tanks. The Soviet invaders could call on 5,550. Despite this numerical deficiency, the Japanese Kwantung Army was still able to demonstrate that the Soviet Union possessed no monopoly when it came to excellent military hardware. The Japanese arsenal was small in comparison with that of their Soviet opponents, but it included weapons that had already proved themselves on the battlefields of Eastern Asia. When war broke out between China and Japan in 1937, the Chinese quickly found themselves faced with the Type 95, a light tank that proved a highly effective machine. In August 1945, the Type 95 remained an important component of the Kwantung Army armor provision. A 4-man vehicle, the Type 95 was powered by a single Mitsubishi diesel engine generating 120 horsepower and a maximum speed of 45 kilometers per hour. Armament was provided by a 37mm main gun with 2 machine guns in support. 4.38 meters in length and just over 2 meters in width, the Type 95 proved itself to be a superb anti-infantry weapon in the battles that took place in the war with China. Though it proved less successful when faced with the might of American armor and anti-tank guns, the Type 95 could still be of value against the kind of ground offensive that the Soviet Union planned for August 1945. Japanese weaponry also revealed that the occupiers of Manchuria recognized the importance of support from the air, and although the Kwantung Air Force was less than half the size of its Soviet counterpart, it still included warplanes that could seriously hinder any ground offensive. Perhaps the most deadly of these was the Nakajima Ki-84, an aircraft whose development came late in the Second World War. A fighter plane, the Ki-84 or Hayate, could also carry a bomb load of two 250-kilogram devices. But it was as a fighter that this elegant aircraft is best remembered, especially by American bomber crews who had to deal with it in 1944 and 45. Powered by a single 1,800 horsepower engine, the Ki-84 could attain a top speed of 393 miles per hour and had a range of 1,700 kilometers. Fast and maneuverable, the Hayate was also fitted with plenty of firepower. Later models carried two 20mm cannon mounted in the nose, with two 30mm guns fitted in the wings. A warplane like this was more than capable of dealing with bombers such as the Soviet IL-4. But despite the excellence of the aircraft's design, the problem was that Japan simply could not make enough of them. Only 3,382 of these fine warplanes were ever built, and it was the same with all designs of Japanese aircraft later in the war. As the Soviet attack on Manchuria loomed, General Yamada Otozo must have regretted bitterly that his Kwantung Air Force totaled just 1,800 aircraft. Marshal Vasilievsky's force included 4,370 planes. It was without doubt a serious imbalance of resources, but General Otozo knew there were factors that favored the defending Japanese in the event of a Soviet attack. The individual Japanese soldier still possessed plenty of spirit for the fight. A fanatical loyalty to emperor and empire still flourished in the Japanese ranks, as did the desire to make the ultimate sacrifice as proof of this loyalty. The Kwantung Army were also familiar with the territory under their command, and General Yamada Otozo knew the profound geographical difficulties that faced any invading army. The Soviet Union intended to conquer some 1.5 million square kilometers of territory, an area the size of Western Europe. This sheer size alone was a powerful influence in both Soviet and Japanese planning. But it was the details of the Manchurian terrain that decisively influenced strategy when battle was eventually joined, both offensively and defensively. For any army seeking to control the lands of Manchuria, it is the central valley plains of the south that provide the key to success. As well as being the fertile heartland of the region, the Central Valley also enjoys the protection of some powerful natural defenses. To the west, the mountains of the Grand Hingians. To the north, the Lesser Hingians. To the east, the Eastern Highlands. All with limited avenues of approach, as the Japanese knew well. But the mountains are not the only difficulties facing any invader of Manchuria. Before the Soviet Trans-Baikal front could even reach the Great Hingian Mountains, they would have to traverse the arid deserts of Inner Mongolia. In the northwest and in the east, thick forests added to the difficulties of fast-moving offensive warfare, while the riverlands of the north and northeast were surrounded by swampy marshland, which would be especially difficult to cross during the August rainy season. A successful invasion would require ingenuity and flexibility, but the Soviets approached their task with a quiet sense of confidence. We cannot be sure why it was that the Soviets decided to launch their attack on Manchuria at 0100 hours on the 9th of August 1945. But the broader political picture must surely have played a part. When the American atomic bomb was detonated over Hiroshima on the 6th of August, many in the Japanese leadership realized that the war was now lost. As Tokyo debated their response to the nuclear attack, the Soviet Union made its move. The time of planning was now past, and brilliant Soviet preparation meant that all around the Manchurian border, hundreds of thousands of troops were in position, ready for the fight, on the Trans-Baikal front, on the Second Far Eastern Front, and on the First Far Eastern Front, The evening of the 8th of August 1945 saw the final preparations for what would be one of the most ambitious operations of the Second World War. Manchuria was about to become a battlefield.